11. Unusual prehistoric critters.
Welcome to Throwback Thursdays.
Number 11. Gorgonopsids. This creature was on the scene long before dinosaurs ruled the earth. It was a fast and vicious predator, measuring up to 10 feet long from nose to tail. Thanks to its enormous canines measuring nearly 5 inches, the animal was a key predator in southern Africa during the late Permian, around 260 to 254 million years ago. They likely used those big teeth to dine on the herbivores of the time. ARTHROPLEURA. This was an ancestor to millipedes and centipedes, and could grow up to 8 feet long. They could also measure several feet wide, which would make for a scary sight to say the least. Because of its massive size, it's thought the creature had few predators, despite it being an invertebrate. It is in fact the largest invertebrate species ever uncovered, by a wide margin. ARTHROPLEURA looked like it could be a predator itself, but it was actually a herbivorous arthropod, and fossilized evidence indicates it could move pretty fast across the forest floor, swerving to avoid rocks and trees. It lived around 300 million years ago throughout present-day North America and Scotland. It would have taken a humongous kind of raid to take down this critter. Aren't you glad it's extinct? HOPLOPHONEUS. You'd think this was a big cat, but despite appearances, it really wasn't. This creature belonged to a family of mammals called Nimravidae, which are closely related to cats, and were native to North America around 35 million years ago during the late Eocene to early Oligocene epoch. Some species were about the size of a big leopard and had extremely large upper canine teeth. Researchers think the animals aimed those big teeth at an enemy's eyes and the back of the head. Evidence from fossils indicates the creatures often fought amongst themselves. DEINOTHERIUM. From the look of this creature, you might guess it's a prehistoric relative to modern-day elephants, and you would be correct. This big beast first appeared in the Middle Miocene and lived until the early Pleistocene. And while its elephantine appearance didn't change much over time, it had a shorter trunk and its tusks were downward curving and attached to the lower jaw, unlike present-day pachyderms. Weighing over 15 tons and standing around 15 feet high, this was one of the largest land animals that ever existed. Its fossils have been found in Asia, Africa, and Europe. The horned horse. There isn't a great deal of information on this animal, but it sounds so unusual that we had to include it. Synthetoceras was a creature that inhabited the plains of North America during the late Miocene, 10 to 5 million years ago. While we did refer to it as a horse, it more resembles a deer, but it's actually more closely related to the modern camel, or maybe a unicorn from the look of it. Its most unique feature was the foot-long horn that branched into a small V shape at the end. It also had a pair of horns positioned behind its eyes. Only males possessed them, and it's thought the horns were used for sparring when competing for females. How would you like to ride one of those animals into the sunset? GIGANTOPITHECUS. This was literally a big ape, and bigger than a polar bear. Standing nearly 10 feet tall and weighing some 1,200 pounds, it was one of the largest apes that ever existed, and it was around from 9 million years to 100,000 years ago. That places it in roughly the same time period as certain hominid species. Scientists have not been able to determine an exact cause of extinction for this animal, but it is conceivable that humanity played some role in their demise. Some cryptozoologists have speculated that sightings of the Yeti and Bigfoot might in fact have a connection to a population of Gigantopithecus that has somehow been lost through the ages. DUNKLEOSTEUS. Now here's a prehistoric fish you wouldn't want to reel in. At 20 feet long, armored, and weighing nearly a ton, this monster would catch you, not the other way around. DUNKLEOSTEUS was considered to be a hypercarnivorous apex predator. That means it was at the top of the food chain and had an overwhelming hunger for meat. Hypercarnivores are usually defined as having a diet in excess of 70% meat. But although it was an avowed meat eater, the animal didn't have teeth. 2 pair of plates in its mouth formed a beak-like structure which could exert a powerful bite force. By some estimates, it could be in the range of a crocodiles, exerting 8,000 pounds per square inch of pressure on its victims. They lived in the late Devonian period, some 360 to 380 million years ago. ELASMOSAUR. It lived during the late Cretaceous period over 80 million years ago. It was one of the largest plesiosaurs, weighing more than 4 tons and measuring around 46 feet in length. The creature's neck made up half of that length. It contained over 70 vertebrae, which exceeds that of any known animal today. The long neck was also the only part of its body it could lift out of the water. While the ELASMOSAUR isn't known to have close relations to any animals in the present, some people do think there's a connection between it and a certain aquatic monster alleged to reside in Scotland. HELICOPRION. This bizarre shark-like fish swam in the oceans of the early Permian period some 290 million years ago. They could grow over 24 feet long, although there's evidence to suggest that some species could have grown longer, perhaps up to 40 feet long. It gets the nickname the spiral saw due to fossils that display an unusual tooth whorl that is reminiscent of a circular saw. Researchers think the pattern represents teeth produced by the animal in its lower jaw. As it matured, older, smaller teeth were positioned into the center of the whorl as newer, larger teeth appeared. Paleontologists are still debating exactly how the creature fed itself. A popular theory states that HELICOPRION used its flexible jaw like a whip, lashing it into schools of fish and retrieving whatever it managed to impale. But there's still disagreement over where the creature would store its lower jaw when it wasn't feeding, and that has led to many different artists' renditions of the animal. Its fossils have been found in Australia, Asia, and North America. MEGATHERIUM. You'd hardly think of a sloth as a deadly monster, yet this creature was indeed related to the modern sloth and roamed wooded areas of South America. But there are a few differences. MEGATHERIUM did behave like a sloth. It had a bear-like appearance and had the dimensions of an elephant, measuring up to 20 feet long and weighing over 8,000 pounds. It could even appear more massive by standing on its hind legs and bearing its giant claws. And because the animal may have died out as recently as 10,000 years ago, it's possible that humans interacted with this monster. MOSASAURUS. This gigantic carnivorous lizard existed in the waters between 70 to 66 million years ago and could reach lengths of over 50 feet. And despite its looks, MOSASAURUS is not a dinosaur. That term refers to the descendants of the archosaurs, or ruling reptiles that were land dwellers. Mosasaurs are more closely related to modern-day lizards like the Komodo dragon. They were thought to have powerful, shark-like tails that allowed them to chase down enough prey to satisfy their omnivorous appetite. They really got around, too. Their fossils have been found on every continent, including Antarctica. Now, if Mosasaurus looks and/or sounds familiar, maybe you recall seeing the creature having a role in Jurassic World. While some experts thought too many liberties were taken with the creature's portrayal, audiences didn't seem to care.